I took the security contract at Fairview Park because they paid overtime for nights and no one else wanted to babysit a dead fairground. The county kept the gates chained and the lights off, said the rides were unsafe and the insurance worse. Locals said the lights turned on anyway. They said the Carousel played songs without power. First week on, I learned the fair still kept its own hours. My first patrol, a floodlight flicked on over the midway. Not all the way, more like a held breath. The generator shack was padlocked, the meter dead. A breeze ran down the game alley where prizes still hung flat and sun-faded. A stuffed tiger turned slowly on a rotten string and faced me like it had found the person it was waiting for. Fairview sat on the edge of town where the blacktop ended and fields took over. The Ferris wheel leaned a few degrees left, a metal daisy missing pedals. The Carousel had plywood horses in place of the carved ones that had been auctioned off. The roller coaster, a kiddie model, ran a circle like a dog chasing its tail. The calliope lived in a small booth with a broken window and a sign that said, "Do not operate." They gave me a ring of keys, a flashlight that could blind a deer, and a binder of incident reports. Graffiti, fence cutters, kids with spray paint. 6 months back, a burst of lights drew a crowd to the fence at 3 a.m. The deputies arrived to find everything dark. No power draw registered. The report had a handwritten note at the bottom. If you hear the tune, do not hum along. I parked by the maintenance shed and walked the perimeter, counting posts so I didn't look too long at the shadows between them. The cotton candy stand still smelled sweet in heat, a ghost of sugar up from the wood. The prize counter had 3 Polaroids taped under the glass. In each, the midway lights glowed wrong, too even, like frost. Someone had pressed a thumb into the middle photo while the ink was wet. The print matched none of the staff. On my second night, I heard the first whistle. Not a train, not a person. A high, thin pipe note from the calliope booth. I checked the breaker panel out of ritual. Everything off. The note held long enough to feel watched. It slid down a step, then stopped like it had remembered a rule. I started a log on a clipboard. Time, direction of wind, any light, any sound. At 0041, a string of bulbs over the ring toss flickered once and stayed dead. At 105, the prize tiger turned again, even though no breeze moved the pennants. At 123, the Ferris wheel cabin at the top creaked as if someone shifted their weight. I wrote it down and kept walking. The Carousel platform had buckled where rain pooled. Painted plywood horses lifted on metal poles. Each horse wore the same blue saddle with a gold stripe, the kind of shortcut you make when you need a ride to look full. One horse had a cigarette burn on its eye that someone had tried to paint over. When my light passed the mirrors above the center, my face lagged behind by a beat and then caught up with a jerk. Fairview's map kiosk had a plastic cover that yellowed with age. Someone had circled the Carousel in red and scrawled a note at the bottom. Stop at 3. It looked like a kid's writing, but the pressure marks were deep, adult. I traced the circle with my finger, then wiped the dust from the corner without thinking. The map left powder on my skin, a smell like old receipts. At 2:59, the floodlight on the midway warmed again. The bulb didn't hum. It breathed. The whole midway took a half step brighter as if dawn tested a wrong address. The calliope gave 2 short notes. The first was clean. The second wavered, almost a voice. My radio hissed, and the earpiece whispered my name without the rest of the sentence. The log on my clipboard collected a drop of condensation that wasn't from my breath. At 3:13, the Carousel lights came on in one soft click. Not full, only the bulbs over the mirrors and the edge scallops, the ones that make a ring like a crown. The platform trembled and stopped. A coin rolled across the deck from nowhere, slow enough to count the ridges, and fell into a crack with a note like a tiny bell. The calliope played 3 notes that should not work together, and somehow did. The horses leaned forward a fraction, as if someone had asked a question. I stepped onto the platform and felt the wood flex under my boots. I put a hand on the nearest pole. It was warm. The mirrors around the center showed the midway behind me as if the fence were full of people standing there, but when I turned, the fence was clean. My reflection in the glass behind the organ wore a uniform a size too big and a hat I didn't own. The hat's brim shadowed a face that wasn't mine. The calliope asked the question again, not in words, in rhythm. 3, then 1, then 3, then stop. The map note flashed in my head. Stop at 3. I moved to the control panel out of reflex. The panel door was rusted open. Wires cut. A switch labeled Run sat in the off position with its guards bent away like a hand had forced them. A keyhole had no key. Above the switch, someone had scratched a warning. Do not complete the circle. The rides here had a trick. If you push a dead ride, it coasts a little. I set my weight and nudged the platform. The deck shuddered and moved an inch, maybe 2, then stopped. The lights held steady. The calliope limped a half measure. I counted out loud without meaning to. 1, 2, 3. The horses leaned another hair forward. Something under the deck creaked as if weight shifted in the wrong place. The mirror to my left changed. Not my face, not the midway. A row of people sat on the horses, all in gray, stiff at the shoulders like they were holding tickets they didn't want to drop. No eyes, only hollows where the bulbs reflected. The person on the cigarette-burn horse turned their head toward me slower than a neck turns. The calliope lifted into a thin cord that made my teeth hurt. The radio in my ear said, "Finish it," and then the channel went white. I put both hands on the guardrail and pushed the deck 1 more inch. The cord held. The platform gave a small slide, just enough to make the horses tilt into motion and then fall back. The calliope cut off with a gasp. The lights blinked once. The mirrors cleared. The cigarette-burn horse stood empty, a smear on the pole where a hand would be looked wet and wasn't. I stepped down, and the floodlight over the midway exhaled to dark again. The prize tiger faced away. The Ferris wheel cabin at the top stopped creaking. The map kiosk showed my fingerprint in the dust where I'd traced the circle. I wiped it away with a sleeve, and the circle bled through the plastic in the same red it had before. On my way to the gate, the radio whispered something that wasn't my name. A tune without notes, only the shape of a melody. My feet wanted to match it. I kept them off the beat and counted even numbers until the door of the maintenance shed took my weight. In the office, I wrote the incident in a calm hand. Lights at 3:13. Carousel moved without power. Audio anomaly. No trespassers observed. I added the line from the binder. If you hear the tune, do not hum along. If you work nights around rides that don't run, never complete the circle. Do not follow a melody you didn't ask to hear. Don't touch mirrors that show crowds when the fence is empty. If a carousel asks for 3, give it 2 and walk away. Some fairgrounds keep the last turn for names they want to keep. I still park by the shed. I still count fence posts. The midway holds its breath now and then, but the lights stay off most nights. When they warm, I write it down and do not step on the deck. The coin that fell through the crack will wait there. The county can decide what to do when the auction list reaches the calliope. I will be off duty that day. Subscribe for more original horror stories.